Good morning and welcome to the College of Humanities and Social Sciences seminar series. I am Selma Al-Marri, an undergraduate student in the literature program. For the seminar today, we will be featuring Rima Qayed, a BA in literature candidate, who will present Revival in Secret Garden. And next, we will hear from Masters in Clinical Psychology candidate Khaled Ahmed, who will discuss attachment and emotion regulation. And finally, Shaikha Al-Ali, a BA in Literature candidate, who will present Cinderella, a comparison of the books and movies.
Hello everyone, my name is Shaikha Al-Ali. In my research, I discussed 4 versions of Cinderella, 2 books and 2 movies. The first book is the first famous publication by Charles Perrault in 1697. The second is the Grimm's Brothers adaptation in 1812, and then a Disney animated movie in 1950, and after that is the Disney live action in 2015. In the Perrault, it was the most widely known Cinderella books, and it was translated to English where it gained its popularity because it was originally written in French. And it had the nice, happy ending since Cinderella gave her stepsister's husband after they treated her poorly. In the Grimm's version, it was written by Germans, and Cinderella's mother had a big role, unlike the Perrault. She was mentioned a lot in the book in the beginning, where she told her daughter to be kind, and then she became the tree that gave Cinderella the dresses. And it had a dark ending, since the stepsisters, while walking Cinderella down the aisle, the birds pecked out their eyes, and the mother had to dance to her death. The differences in the book is the father's authority. In Perrault's version, you don't see the father's authority much. It's mostly the stepmother. That's who they talk to when they go to the shoe fitting at the end of the book. But in the Grimm's version, they talk to the father as he is seen the authority version. The magic in both of them, in the Grimm's, you didn't have a lot of magic because it was just the giving tree. But in the Perrault, you had the fairy godmother, you had the carriage, and the magic of bibbidi bobbidi boo. The slippers material is also different. In Perrault, it was glass slippers, but in the Grimm's, it was gold. And the similarities in the book is that both beauty represent good behavior. Cinderella was beautiful, so she had good behavior. She was kind and giving. But the stepsisters and mother were not as beautiful, so they were evil. And both of them, Cinderella marries the prince, and they both don't have a real name of Cinderella. It's just the name given to her by the stepsisters. So we don't know Cinderella's actual name. In the animated version, it was inspired by Perrault, considering the fact that it had the magic, it had the fairy tale, it had the fairy godmother, and Disney tried to capture realistic body representations. It was the second Disney princess animated movie, and they tried to make Cinderella look as natural as possible. And it revolves around chasing dreams, since the opening song to it was "A dream is a wish your heart makes." In the live action one, it used both Perrault's and Grimm's. It's the similarities from Grimm's is the idea of being good and kind. And in the Grimm's, before the mother passed away, she told her daughter to be good. And that's what is seen in the movie. In the animated movie, it's because of the prince's return and finding a wife for him. But in the live action, it was just for finding a wife for the prince. And the animals don't talk in the live action one, but they do talk in the animated one, considering the fact that it's cartoon. But they do understand Cinderella in the live action. And in the animation, Miss Cinderella meets the prince at the ball, while in the live action, Cinderella meets the prince before the ball, while they were horseback riding. The similarities is the glass slipper. It was both glass, and that's the thing that's missing and the prince finds. And the ball was held for 1 day, and they both had Cinderella leaving at midnight, unlike the books. So the number of days the ball was held is, for Perrault, it was held for 2 days, and for Grimm's, it was held for 3 days. But in the movies, it was only held for 1 day, which I'm guessing is because of the production time. Cinderella's mother and father are seen more in the movies than they are in the books. And the father died in the movies, but in the books, he was still alive. and he didn't object to Cinderella's stepmother treatment of her. And the use of anthropomorphism. They all have talking animals. They both have animals that understand them, but only the cartoon had animals that could talk. And they all capture the true essence of Cinderella, which is the princess meets the prince, and he helps her and saves her, and she lives happily ever after. And the glass slipper, it represents delicacy and elegance in Cinderella. She was walking on glass slippers that didn't break. It also represents her purity and innocence, which was evident in her behavior of extreme kindness. The Grimms changed the material of it while the rest kept the glass slipper. And in the Perrault's version, the slipper fell off her feet as she was running away, and that was in the live action and the cartoon. But in the Grimms, the prince had to throw pitch on the stairwells, and her gold slipper got stuck to it. And that's how they found her at the end.
In my research, I looked at a particular theme in The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Barnett, revival. It's consistent throughout the story. Different characters and elements alike are essentially revived. I call this peculiar realism because it carries out a tone that is rather hopeful. Unlike the usual realism that we see in other works of literature, it is a children's book after all. The attributes that make The Secret Garden realistic, or what at least make me call it a realist novel, are colonialism, child negligence, and gender roles, all of which were also prominent features during in which the time the novel was written. The British Empire and colonialism are basically the background in the book. Mary, the protagonist, she was born and raised in India exclusively by Indian servants that feared to contradict her every command. Her behavior reflects the way that white children of a specific class were brought up in the colonies. I describe Mary in the paper as a semi-illiterate imperialistic bully whom no one cares for, and this is as accurate as it gets for at least the first half of the book. I argued that Barnett used Mary as a mouthpiece. In a rather small scale, Mary is the overseas British Empire, and the Indian servants are the countries and nations that they invade and colonize. The way that Mary treats said servants in the book, she just takes and takes and takes, and she never gives anything back. And granted, she's a child, but the servants always comply. And they, no matter how unreasonable she's acting, if her orders are met with any amount of resistance, her servants are physically assaulted, they're humiliated and abused. Sounds familiar? Child negligence is also prevalent throughout the story, and it's another reason why Mary acts the way that she does. Her parents throw her in the hands of servants from the moment that she's born, and after that they just continue to ignore her existence. After her parents' death, Mary is then moved to England and into a similar household, similar in a way that both have a shortage of responsible adults. Mary's cousin Colin, who is bedridden for completely illogical reasons, is also ignored by his father, Archibald Craven, Mary's uncle. Although it's not for the same reason as Mary's mother, who only wanted the privileges and advantages that came with her marriage, but not the child. Archibald Craven, we could infer from the text that he genuinely wanted to start a family, but that plan was destroyed by the sudden and tragic death of his wife. Still, the children in both households, both Mary and Colin, they share similar characteristics. They're both notorious against their servants, and they're very unlikable children, which the book reiterates is the result of parental neglect. Now, when I say gender roles, I don't mean gender roles and society. I mean gender roles and characterization. I looked at the way male and female characters are portrayed in the novel from a literary point of view, and how quote-unquote female and masculine traits are shown. I want to focus on Dickon here specifically, and why I say he's a strong male character. Dickon is the common boy, or the boy from the working class, who helps Mary revive the garden. In my paper, I say that his presence in the garden is not assertive, it's cooperative. His overall character in the book is very wholesome. He's very gentle and caring, and he's liked and respected to a certain point by both the other characters in the books and the readers for these qualities, these so-called feminine qualities. It's quite common to read about female characters that possess masculine traits, but on the other hand, we don't really see much male characters that have mostly feminine traits, and this is why I think Dickens is very special. He's not mischievous, he's polite, and he's unlike a lot of the adolescent boys or characters, male characters of the same era, like Tom Sawyer, for example. Going back to revival, with realism, stories don't usually end on a very happy note, and it's fine, that's reality. That's the whole point of realism. But what I feel Barnett did in The Secret Garden is that she started with the melancholy setting, right? And but then she proceeded to make the situations better in a way that made sense. So Mary, for example, she's sickly and skinny. Just let her run around in the fresh air of the moors. She'll eventually get hungry and she'll start to eat. The garden is locked up and uncared for. We'll unlock it and then we'll give it attention again. Colin is bedridden and believes he's going to die soon. Mary helps him leave his comfort zone, and he finally starts to act like a child. There are levels onto how these things are escalated. It doesn't just happen out of the blue, and that is what makes the narrative both hopeful and realistic at the same time. It's essentially saying that life doesn't always have to be so gloomy and sorrowful, that we have to acknowledge these few and precious cheerful moments. While writing the paper, I started to wonder what these themes reminded me of, and I realized that they're very similar to a certain movie. Lilo and Stitch, in my humble opinion, is a cinematic revolution, though I could be biased. On the surface, yes, it is a nonsensical excuse of a sci-fi movie catered specifically to children and their entertainment, but if you dig deep, however, and if you critically watch the movie more than once, you'll begin to notice evidence of realism. So the movie is set in the state of Hawaii, and the way it depicts certain conditions there, especially those of the financial kind, is eerily accurate for a children's movie. The characterization is thoroughly thought for as well, with backstories that explain the character's behavior, including the main character Lilo's mental health issues and her superstition. I compared Lilo and Stitch to The Secret Garden, despite the clear differences in their settings, because they both have many similarities between them. So the movie's directors, just like Barnett, don't shy away from portraying uncomfortable scenes that address the reality that we live in. Additionally, Stitch, the blue koala-like alien, he's similar to Mary. He too starts out as an unloved and uncared for character. When he's introduced into a new environment, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a good environment. In fact, in both narratives, it's a very unhealthy environment. Still, he begins to see the errors of his ways, and he slowly changes to the better. Also, Stitch and Mary both unite the fragmented families that they end up living with. Lastly, I praise this book for containing many themes and elements from different literary periods, such as Romanticism, social realism, a beta version of naturalism, if you will, and what I like to call the British version of regional realism. It's crucial for a piece of literature to contain more than just realism if it wants to convey an important idea or to be able to send a certain message to its readers. And I believe The Secret Garden succeeds in doing just that.
Today we are going to talk about attachment and the influence of attachment in our childhood on how we regulate our emotions. Let me start with this picture. If you can imagine that we have taken a child of a monkey from his mother when he is 6 to 12 days old, and we put him in a place where there is basically a body, we call it surrogate. one of surrogates with cloth and the other surrogate with wire. So in the time of difficulty, fear, anxiety, where do you think this baby monkey would go? To which side? This experiment was conducted by Harlow. And basically he tried to take the monkey child from his mother at early ages and put him in a place where he provide a replaced mother. He called it surrogate. And then he put basically a clothed mom and wired mom. And this monkey, when they brought to his room, a frightening kind of robot, he ran away to a clothed mom and sit there most of the time, even though from time to time he go to the wire mom, surrogate, in order to basically drink milk. So this experiment, it shows that mostly we and animals, we like to have kind of warmth, love, and comfortable environment rather than only environment that kind of fulfill our physiological needs. Attachment theory, built by John Bowlby. Basically, in this attachment, we realize how the attachment influence our looking at the external world, our social relationships, our cognitive abilities, and our general well-being. Through secure-based relationships, is very crucial for the child to explore the world around him or her, know how to deal with strangers in the surroundings. It also influences our thinking, how we build our thinking schema, whether it is distorted cognitions, whether it is adaptive ones. Bowlby provided three main secure styles. The first one is secure attachment, which refers to the fulfillment interactions in which the child is assured that the caregiver, mostly the mother, would be there to provide security and comfort in the time of need. Now moving on to the second attachment style, which is the anxious attachment style, in which the child is worried and unsure whether the attachment figure will be there to support or not. This uncertainty came from the frequent experience of failure to find support and comfort from the caregiver unless they try and attempt very hardly to take their attention. Now the third style of attachment is called avoidance attachment, in which the child mistrusts the intentions of the attachment figures and try to be self-reliant, self-dependent, and have independent behaviors and emotionally distant, aloof, and cold from the people around him or her. It may result from a high level of control by the parents and low level of comfort and empathy experienced by the child, as well as the constant failure and disappointment to find support and comfort when they are in need. We have here two strategies that mostly people use it to interact with the social world. We call the first one is deactivating strategy. In deactivating strategy, it is used mostly by those who frequently experience avoidant attachment. It includes not getting close or be interdependent in a relationship in general. It also includes not seeking proximity or closeness and denying the need of attachment at all. It develops as a result of harsh treatment or punishment by caregivers when such children seek closeness or even express vulnerability of the need of empathy. This kind of harsh treatment increases the feeling of mistrust and insecurity towards the caregivers and towards the people as a result. The second strategy that people might use it to interact with the social world is that called hyperactivating strategies. Those people who highly experience anxiety attachment, they use it the most. It includes trying hard to be close to others and seek support, comfort, and love, and security through relationships and interactions. Nevertheless, these attempts are combined with uncertainty that such emotions might not be provided to them by other people. And when they truly happened, they are rejected, their sense of anger, resentment, and anxiety increase. So basically, if people rejected them, their anger will increase, their resentment and anxiety, because they try harder, but they didn't get what they expected. Now, this kind of strategies developed in an interaction that requires persistent efforts from the needy child to seek support, which met by responding sometimes and ignoring the other time. Okay, moving to emotion regulation. Attachment styles may impact how people regulate their emotions in a way that is adaptive to the environment and situations they live in. One of the most strategies used to regulate the emotions, mostly we are all doing it, is cognitive reappraisal and expressive suppressions. We will talk about an example. Students who interrupt delivering a presentation as an anxiety-eliciting situation may be more anxious than those who alter their interpretation positively from thinking that people will laugh at me because I am not good enough or I will not do properly, to think that I think I can manage it if I prepare well for it. Now this would help the students to be less anxious and more relaxed. All right. Now, in social interactions, mostly people who are in secure attachment will be more able to deal with their environment in a proper way. They will be more likely to talk and share their anxious experiences as opposed to those people who have experienced anxious and avoidant attachment. Most likely they will restrain from talking to others or share their experiences. And this is in a circle will let other people to avoid them to some extent. Now, anxious children are more likely to express their emotions, but in an extreme way. For instance, if others did not respond to them as they wish, or if they reject them, they may exaggerate the feelings of anger, worries, and anxiety. This is why anxious attachment may strongly be related to impulsivity and destructive outbursts, which may include damaging behaviors and violence, which makes maintaining social relationships very difficult and sometimes impossible. Now, there is a light of hope after all. Now, according to Bailoby, he said that he didn't believe that attachments are specified only to the caregivers in childhood, but they may move from parents to others such as siblings, teachers, best friends, and others. Therefore, as the attachment may change from the figure to another, the strategies developed from the initial figures may be changed accordingly. And as a result, the people may think and behave, they may change their behavior as well.